All right. All right. I had a little bit of technical difficulty this morning, but we're back. This is episode 221. I posted First Kings 15, 1 through 11, and I entitled this Warring Kingdoms. And what we're going to see here is how the reigns of the kings in the north and the south overlap. And there's some key elements to this particular chapter. It's 34 verses. You have Abijam at the beginning of this, who's the son of Rehoboam. So he is a king in Judah. Following him, we have Asa, who is also a king in Judah. But while these two men are serving in the south, Jeroboam is still the king in the north. There's overlap. That's what we want to see here. And then, following in this same chapter, following Jeroboam, he has his son Nadab. And Nadab is assassinated by Baasha. And not only is he assassinated, but all of the descendants of Rehoboam, or excuse me, of Jeroboam are wiped out as well, in keeping with the promise of the prophet, all right, about how, because what Jeroboam did in the sins of Jeroboam in bringing these golden calves into the north and actually making them part of the fabric of the northern culture, the wrath of God was upon him and his family. So the whole end of Rehoboam's lineage happens under Baasha. All right, that's in verses 27 to 30. I was going to say something about how violent all of this is when we start talking about these kings. So what you have is you have warfare between Judah and Israel, the north and the south, and then both sides, you'll see as we look at this, if they need help against the other, they will go to outside armies. Syria is often a big help, all right? And the principle of either the north or the south going to Syria or an outside nation for military help is diametrically opposed to what God wanted. They were supposed to go to him. He is supposed to be the commander in chief, the captain of the Lord's host. All right. And so this whole idea of approaching these other nations for help, military help or help otherwise, is a demonstration of a lack of trust in God. They'd rather trust an army than they would trust just yielding to God and asking Him for help. All right. So we're going to see all these things happen. Interaction between the North and the South, either side going Confederate with an outside army. There's always going to be two kings. There's going to be a king in the North and a king in the South. Of course, their reigns don't just line up like this. One dies and another one is still at the throne, and then someone else comes on the scene, so their reigns overlap. That's what this is all about. I mentioned this yesterday. All right. And so let's just look at this. We'll just work through the text. As far as I get, I'll try to keep it reasonable. But I just want to cover this. This is often stuff that is rushed through, and I don't want to. I want to, and we're gonna hit this stuff again when it gets to Chronicles. So we try to get some of these events, these historic events, firmly entrenched in our thinking. I was talking to my son. He came across the Bible trivia game, or the cards at a yard sale or something like that. And he said, it's Bible trivia. That's what he wanted me to know. Bible trivia is not the stuff we all know. It's the trivial parts. Now, it's all God's word, but there's some things that are trivia compared to, especially when I talk about these guys that only preach out of 15 or 20 or 15 or 20 verses, right? So a lot of those folks, a lot of it would be trivia because they're not covering that much. But he said the next time the family gets together, he's got to bring these cards because the trivia that it is in there is trivia. I mean, some of these questions. So we'll see how much of the Bible we really know. I mean, down to the small things, what we would consider the small things. All right. So this I would not argue is the small things, although some people might say this is Bible trivia. Okay. So here we go. 1 Kings 15, verse 1, it says, "Now in the 18th year of the king of Jeroboam," and see, this helps us establish a time framework. So we know that Jeroboam is serving up in the north for, 22 years, right? So in the 18th year that Jeroboam is the king in Israel, Um, it says the son of Nebat reigned Abijam over Judah. All right, 3 years reigned he in Jerusalem. So, uh, so Abijam is going to reign 3 years in Jerusalem. So while the old man is up here in the north, which is Jeroboam, Abijam is down here in the south in Judah. All right. His mother's name was Maacah, and the daughter of Ashbalaam, and he walked in all the sins of his father. That is, he was no different than Rehoboam. He just walked in all the sins of his father. All right. You don't want to see this, but in this case, it is like father, like son. Here it is. He walked in all the sins of his father, which he had done before him. His heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father. And see, they're in the south, so they're still in the lineage of David. And again, we're talking about the heart of David. I want you to note that, again, his heart was perfect. But if you come down here, let me just read. When you come to verse 5, just stay with me. Because he said his heart wasn't perfect with the Lord his God as the heart of David his father. And then verse 4, this passage is amazing. It says, nevertheless, for David's sake, did the Lord his God give him a lamp in Jerusalem. All right, that is, there was still a light of the lineage of David through Rehoboam to his son Abijam, all right, to set up his son after him to establish Jerusalem. And here it is, verse 5. You just have to note this again, all right? Because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, all right? Which ties in with the reference of being perfect. That is, I keep saying perfection is an issue of growing. Nobody is intrinsically perfect. Even when we're glorified and our sin nature is removed, we're still going to be growing because we're going to become more like God, which we will never achieve. Perfection, as I discussed it there, is a divine ideal to which we grow, but which we will never achieve ever throughout all of eternity, because it doesn't matter how long you're in heaven, you're still not going to somehow turn into God. All right. So there's always a progression here. There's a progression here. So he's called perfect, and this perfection is spoken of as the path that David is walking, because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord. Here we go. And turned not aside from anything that he commanded him in all the days of his life. All right. That's what it says. He's on the right path. And then we read this. So we got the perfect and did not turn aside. And then the last part of verse 5 is save or accept only in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. It's even referenced here. So he's on the proper trajectory. He is perfect, or as the Bible would describe perfection, as being on growth towards Christ's likeness, except in the fact that he murdered Uriah, and it doesn't say the adultery with Bathsheba, but this is the point. The issue here is David is still the model, and I know I'm here again at it because the Bible is here again at it. David is still the model, even though he had these failures, all right, because his life's path was to Christ's likeness, to worship and obey and honor and trust God, all right? And so I'm not going to say any more about it, but here it is again, and it's in bold relief. He said he's called perfect. He said that David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him in all the days of his life, except this, the murder of Uriah. Okay, there's the verse. That is the verse that everybody it kind of encapsulates the whole thing. All right, that's why I wanted to accent it. And then we see this in verse 6. And there was war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all the days of his life. Yeah, this is going to keep going. All right, they're always going to be at war. All right, there's some times of peace, but most of the time it's violence. All right. Now the rest of the acts of Abijam and all that he did, are they not written in the books of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? And there was war between Abijam and Jeroboam. So there was war with Rehoboam and Jeroboam, and now his boy came on the scene, and Abijam and Jeroboam are still fighting. So the north and the south are still at each other, all right? It's a violent time between Israeli brothers. It's like almost perpetual civil war, all right? It speaks of these kingdoms as the north and the south, Israel and Judah, but they're all Israelis, all right? Uh, it would be like North and South Korea, not exactly the same, but they're all Koreans. All right, it was like East and West Germany under communist rule, but they're all German. All right, it's one nation, and this is the same thing here. It's one nation of Israelis that's divided, and they have two kings. They have two religious systems now. It's just and because of animosity in the past, they're at war with one another. All right, one wants to take over the other, and it says this in verse 8. And Abijam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And here, Asa, his son, reigned in his stead. So now you got, and I'm not going to be able to do this for long, but you got Rehoboam and Abijam, and then you got Asa. Okay, and when Asa comes on the throne, Jeroboam is still the king up here. So this is going to be the third king in Judah, and there's only one king in Israel. Okay, all right, because you got Rehoboam, Abijam, and Asa in the south, and Jeroboam is still the king in the north until he dies. All right, it says, and in the 20th year, see, here it is. So it's still in the 20th year. So Jeroboam has 2 more years to reign according to the preceding chapter before he dies. So he's got 2 more years on the throne. Asa comes on, all right? In the 20th year of Jeroboam, king of Judah, reigned Asa over, king of Israel, reigned Asa over Judah. And 41 years reigned he in Jerusalem. Now, Asa is 41 years. David was only 40, and Rehoboam was 40. Asa's got to have him by 1 year. So this is a long reign when it comes to Asa, all right, which is good for Israel, all right, or excuse me, I use Israel in a general sense. It's good for Judah, all right. And it says, 41 years reigned he in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the daughter of Abishalom. And here we go. This is key when we start talking about Asa. And again, you just have to read this carefully. It says, and Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did David his father. So the model again is David, and Asa is in the same category, according to the sacred text, as David. All right? Now, knowing what we know about how this works, are you expecting, as we read the rest of this, that Asa, when it says that did that which was right, and as did David his father, that everything he did was right, according to the standard of the law? No, it wasn't. And we're going to note it here. Just like everything David did was not right according to the standard of the law. The law is holy, all right? None of these men are holy. But as kings, they fall in the category of David. That is, he has a godly, Christ-centered trajectory for his life that has bumps in it, all right? There's something to learn from this, beloved. I'm glad for this because I can't be perfect and neither can you. But we want to make the bumps the exception is the point. Our trajectory for our lives should be to be more like Christ. Be in the Word, be in prayer, be a good witness, all right? All these things. Be faithful to the local church. Be a Christ-centered and Spirit-filled person. All of those things. And while you're in the midst of that, you have some failures, all right? But your trajectory is to walk with the Lord, all right? Those should be the exceptions. And my dad used to say, we talk about exceptions, but the whole idea is if you're living for the Lord and you're walking close to Him, there should be extended periods of time, not forever, because we're sinners by nature, but we should be able to live in a victorious Christian life for prolonged periods of time. All right, and that's true. It's just that when the bump comes, I'm calling it the bump, but when the failure comes, then we confess our sin, we get back on track, and we make that the exception of our lives. That's the idea here as well. The exception to David's life were the big failures with Bathsheba and the murder of Uriah and the numbering of the people, all right? And there's going to be a failure here on the part of Asa too, but he's still modeled after David. Okay, here we go. It says, and this is how we know he's doing the right thing. And Asa did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord, as did David his father. He took away the Sodomites out of the land in keeping with the law, the purging of the land, the immorality that had found some safety there within the borders of Judah. He took away the Sodomites out of the land, removed all the idols that his father had made. Now that's interesting, isn't it? All the idols his father had made, all right, which would have referenced back to Solomon. I mean, he's cleansing the land. There was there was idols, all right. He's not going to cleanse it the whole way, though. Let me get down here. But he takes out all the idols that his father has made, and also Makkah. Here, listen to this. I read this, getting ready for this, I read this again. Now, you got to understand what's going on here, okay? So this is his mom. His mom is an idolater, all right? His dad is an idolater, Abijam, and here's Asa, who's a good guy. See, in one short passage of scripture, I got Rehoboam and Abijah, and they both did the wrong thing. But now I got Abijam's got a boy. His name is Asa, and Asa is going to be a saint here. Not only is he going to be a saint, but his mom, which would have been Abijam's wife, all right, is in the tradition of his dad, the mom and the dad, all right, and they're idolaters, all right. And Abijam, the boy, listen to this. The boy is going to set the family straight. This is really good. Because dad's gone, but mom's still around, and mom is still an idolater. Think about this. Taking your mom, so to speak, as the king to the woodshed. Now, we know what happened with Bathsheba and Solomon in the interaction there about, trying to ask for his Adonijah about the Shunammite, to marry her, and how they dealt with that. This is more stern. Okay, so here's what we have. He said, and also Maacah, his mother, even her, he removed from being the queen, like being the queen mother. He canceled her. He put her out of the government of Judah as the queen. Like, you're a civilian now, Mom. Now think about this, all right? He said he removed her from being queen because she had made an idol in a grove, because she is an idolater and her son is in the business of chopping down idols, and here's Mom still perpetuating it. You can't have, if you're the king, you can't have your mom engaged in this, is what's happening here. Asa's saying, Mom, what are you doing? So it says, he removed her from being the queen mother, all right, because she'd made an idol in a grove, and Asa destroyed her idol. Where's Mom's idol? Give me a hammer. Here, anybody got a torch? All right, here's Mom's idol, and this is the idol that his mom had made, so he's going to destroy Mom's idol. You think about it. Yeah, but my mom, you don't know how forceful my mom is. How forceful do you think his mom was? No, this is Asa. Yeah, and when it comes to the pressure that moms can put on you, yeah, he said, you're not going to be the queen mother anymore, and all the luxuries and the benefits of being around the palace. He says, we're not going to have that anymore. And where's your grove? I'm going to find your idol. He smashes her idol and burn it by the rock Kidron. That is, he broke it into pieces and then he burned it up. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, it says when you get married, you're supposed to leave your father and your mother and cleave unto your wife. Yeah, you got to leave your father and your mother. Now, that's to the men, right? All right, that you don't want your dad, the father-in-law of your wife, running your house, or your mother-in-law running your house. This is one reason I hate doing weddings. I mean, not all the time, but weddings are pathetic because the moms can't stay out of it. They just can't. It's like they already had their wedding. How many times have I talked to moms at weddings and said, listen, dear soul, dear saint, you already had your chance. You did your wedding just the way you wanted. You keep interrupting because we're going to do whatever the bride wants. I mean, and it's usually that way because she's got a good head on her shoulders. I mean, in my experience, it's not always that way. But the whole idea is, Mom, the direction we're going to follow is the bride. This is bride and the groom. This is who we're going to listen to, not you, Mom. You already had your chance to tell the pastor what you wanted. So, I mean, if you give counsel to your daughter that's going to be married, it's a good idea, then, then she wants to do it, fine. But no, I'm not listening to you. I'm saying that a little bit more forceful here, but that's what happens in the front of the church while you're trying to get things done, and they won't be quiet. Here it is. Here's the mom. And so this is a bad mom, is what I'm trying to say. So he has to take these steps. All right. And and it's recorded in the text. Isn't this interesting? My sister just posted. I'm going to forget her name. The grandmother that killed off all our grandkids. I'll think of it anyway. Athaliah, wicked woman, wicked. I mean, there's some great ladies in the Bible. There's some really bad ones too. Here's a bad one. So here we go, and then it keeps going. So he takes care of his mom and her idols, who's setting an example for the nation. But the high places were not removed, and there it is. These high places that were scattered all over, they were still up. All right. Now you're saying, how could that be perfect? And how could he be walking in the ways of David? Because he's only got so much time. He's the king, and I shouldn't be making excuses for him here, but this was not squared away. This would have been a weak point, a failure on his part. But as far as his heart for the Lord and that, I mean, he said he's in the same category as David, which is where you want to find yourself. He said, nevertheless, he said, and here's another verse. You just want to read this together, just like down here, where about David, save in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. There's David in 5, and here's Asa in 14. But the high places were not removed. Nevertheless, Asa's heart was perfect with the Lord all his days. Those are the verses that we have trouble with, because we say, how can this be? And it's because the issue of perfection is one of growth, not a state. That's what it is. That is what the biblical meaning of perfection is. When we speak of God, he is perfect in every way. We're never going to be perfect, okay? Our salvation is perfect because it's granted by God, and those things that are given by God. When God got done with creation, what God does is very good. It's absolutely perfect, all right? But man is the creature, is not that way, especially after the fall. All right. And we will forever be, after we're saved, we're going to be forever growing, because we're never, as much as we strive to do the right thing, we're never going to be God. We're never going to be Jesus Christ. And even to think that we're sometime going to be divine, even after glorification, shouldn't even cross our minds. All right. So that's what's going on here. His path was towards God, the worship of God, the elimination of the idols. All right. That's what we're reading here. And it says this in verse 15, and he brought in the things that his father had dedicated, and the things which he himself had dedicated under the house of the Lord, silver and gold and vessels. That is, he's replenishing the treasury. All right, because remember that Shishak came up and emptied the place out when Rehoboam was the king. So he's trying to replenish the treasury. And then it says this. How much further do I want to go? Verse 16. And there was war between Asa and Baasha, king of Israel, all their days. So while Asa's down here for 41 years trying to run Israel, Baasha is up in the north after he murdered Nadab, who is the son of Jeroboam. Now they're fighting. All right. And let's see how here. Let me keep going here. I'll go down here to the. Let me just come down to the next verse, and they'll start, because the next passage deals with Asa and the fact that he starts working with the Syrians. All right, and then we'll see how far we get for our next devotion. Okay, but this is what I want you to know. In verse 17, there's a point here, very interesting. It says, "And Baasha, king of Israel, went up against Judah." Now this is part of the violence, the civil war between the nations. So he goes up against Judah and built Ramah. Now, it's just one verse here, but this is fascinating. It built Ramah that he might not suffer any to go out or come in to Asa, king of Judah, because things are good in Judah, and there is a defection going on in Israel down to Judah. Nobody wants to be in the north, okay? I mean, there's probably a consciousness about the idolatry, but if there's an indication here that Baasha has to build a fortress at Ramah to keep people from going down to the south, to Judah, to Asa. It's like the wall between East and Western Germany. That's what we're looking at here in the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. He's building a fortress here. And this is the interesting thing about this fortress, too. Ramah is only about 5 miles from Jerusalem. It's not far. It's not way up in the north. And the commentators say either we're not sure about exactly where the border is between Israel and Judah. We kind of draw a line, but it could be that. Or this is a demonstration of Israeli incursion because of fighting. They have pushed down into Judah as far as 5 miles from Jerusalem. Baish is pressed against the armies of Judah, and right down there on the frontier, on the front line of this incursion, or right on the border of Israel and Judah, he's building a fortress in Ramah to keep the Israelis in Israel and not letting them get by to get into Judah. There is nothing new under the sun. I mean, people want to be free, and if they see a better place to go, I mean, and I don't want to get into the illegal alien thing here because all of these people are Israelis. Okay, all right. They all have family on the other side. All right. I mean, these people are all related some way. I mean, there's tribes, but they all go back to Jacob. All right. This is Israel, and they all go back to Abraham, and so. This is the land of Israel. Okay, these are all Israelis, but it looks like Baish, at least if he hasn't just made incursions down there and built this fortress, then it's if it's not incursion, then it's just on the border to keep people in Israel. And later on, you're going to see that because of what Asa does, they're going to tear down Ramah. Anyway, they got to get rid of this fort. Okay, that's good for this morning. I didn't know how far I would get. There's just a lot of details when you start talking about these kings interacting with one another. All right, and so we'll just stop there. The Lord bless you. You have a great day. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Just looking ahead, we're heading up to Northern Virginia on Sunday. So I'm not sure. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I don't know. Coming back Wednesday. So I know this is Thursday, but I'm just giving you forewarning. I don't know about devotions at the beginning of the next week. So if you wonder where things are, it's because we're visiting family in the north. Okay? We'll see what we can do. All right. Well, the Lord bless you. You have a great day. First day of May. Where is the year going? All right. Well, the Lord bless you. And I trust this has been a blessing. Okay. You gotta enjoy studying the Word of God. Amen. Okay, we'll see you. Bye.